Assisted suicide should be legalized in the U.S. because it allows people with a terminal illness to die dignified, it allows them to die on their own terms, and it removes any unnecessary suffering. Dying in a respectable manner would include your choice of where you want, when you want, and your family would be notified of your choice, and so it would allow them to say their goodbyes.
I acknowledge that you support that people should die in their own way. However, there's no reason to commit assisted suicide because there's always a chance that a terminal illness could be outlived. On another point, it gives incentive to doctors to prescribe treatments because it is cheaper than experimental care. Also, patients can simply refuse treatments that they believe are futile rather than opting for assisted suicide.
Their terminal illness may be outlived, but the patient will probably be more satisfied if they chose when and how they will die, rather than letting fate take them by chance, which could be in a more painful way for both the patient and their family.
Even if the patients feel that their terminal illness may not be outlived, they should not commit assisted suicide because they could easily be manipulated into believing that they are a burden, and it would only be proper to relieve said burden, destroying their choice. Even though many people feel that their family may never cozen them into believing that they are worthless, there is always a chance that money is an issue and say the only way to solve that problem is through assisted suicide.
Okay, so you're saying that the patient will be manipulated into killing themselves because they're not worth treatment?
Correct.
Well, I'd have to disagree. Many families have their own interest at hand, but they also have the best interest of the patient, and I think that when it comes down to it, many would rather save the life of their loved one, no matter what the cost may be.
Have you considered that it is not only the family's choice, but it is also what the doctor decides to tell the patient?
Not really.
Well, their relationship could be destroyed due to the fact that doctors are supposed to heal the illness and not eliminate their patients. In addition to that, a doctor does have the right to refuse assisted suicide for a patient because of multiple reasons.
That may be the case, but the doctor would eventually end up losing their patient to the disease anyway, so it's not relevant to this case. However, I would still like to hear your reasons for the doctor's denial of assisted suicide.
Alright, well, for starters, assisted suicide could be viewed by the doctor as a form of murder, and every single doctor, no matter where you are, has a code of ethics, and it is because of this code that they may deny the patient certain forms of treatment if they feel that it is not for the patient's overall well-being. Furthermore, if the patient is already in the late stages of the disease, then the doctor could make the claim that the patient is not in the right frame of mind to personally make that call for themselves. This would be highly important if the patient had no other close family members around to support them in their decision-making.
Okay.
And finally, this would play a role for legalizing assisted suicide as a whole. Where do you draw the line for patients? Does it only apply to those terminally ill, or do we include patients with debilitating illnesses which have eroded their quality of life?
That is a very good question, and at this moment in time, I can only give you my answer. And that would be that assisted suicide would obviously apply to the terminally ill and include those with debilitating illnesses. In addition, those patients who wouldn't be able to make that choice for themselves. And so, in order for it to be approved, you would need the doctor's approval along with the approval of a close family figure who has been with them through the illness. And if there's not one, then a caretaker who has been with them for a minimum of 5 years.
So, in other words, you are concluding that those with debilitating and terminal illnesses should be allowed to choose assisted suicide so long as they are in the right frame of mind.
Yes, unless they are deemed unable to make such a choice, then someone who has their best interest at heart should make the choice.
So the decision is ultimately left to the doctor and one of these two people?
Yeah.
So there must be a relationship between doctor and patient.
I believe so.
I'm glad you agree because that relationship is built upon trust. Furthermore, a trust that determines if a patient lives.
Or dies.
Maybe so, yet since a patient must trust their doctor if they want to get better, then how can they trust them when the doctors have incentives to kill them rather than save them?
I agree with you on that point, but I don't think that all doctors want to kill their patients. For one thing, there's glory in being a savior, and for another, the more patients that a doctor saves, then the better the doctor's reputation will be, and therefore more patients will flock to said doctor. Plus, it's not the doctor who is killing the patient, Rather, it is the patient who is killing themselves with the assistance of the doctor.
I'm glad that we agree that saving patients is good for business, and it may be true that doctors are only co-conspirators, but I believe we have come to a standstill. I am glad that we were able to agree on some points, and I hope we now have a better understanding of each other's views, even if we didn't resolve all of our issues.
Me too.